Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We have a big topic to cover. We heard the last couple of weeks, the software development, Agile Scrum, and so many things. But today, actually, we will be showing how our team works behind the scene. And then we should be able to connect dots in terms of like anything we develop here. So that you heard there is a front end, you heard there is a back end, you heard there is a database. I think the quality assurance has seen last week some, not other people has seen. So today will be the purely web development, how we do the web development. And at the end, we will be actually showing you a new functionality has been added on the Agile LM. It is not exist now. And the code is not deployed, means code is not ready for anybody yet. So you will not see it. So what will happen? You will actually see in the developer computer, and then it will be actually pushed to the Git. So you'll know what is the purpose of the Git, and they will be merging the code, and then we'll be actually deploying the code, and you guys will see the functionality is there. So that's actually the will be an end-to-end journey. Okay. So again, you guys can write down the questions. I will be answering your questions maybe after every 30 minutes so that everybody can write down everybody can get their answer, the questions to be answered. So this project.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think we are going to show the Agile LM, right?
Both.
The functionality enhancement.
Yes, at the very end.
Oh, okay. Yes.
That's the kind of the show and tell. Good. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So any project you start, all as project has the URL. This is the project URL. And I said that remaining so many times the product owner all as write the user stories. So we have the microservice-based application, the platform, monolithic-based platform. Our quality assurance, they actually go through the e-commerce-based platform. So this is actually the e-commerce based platform project URL. This user story has been written by our product owner. Basically, this is the URL here. We'll go over this. Okay. So of course, we heard about so many things as for the functionality, user story, you heard it. So that's kind of the user story we'll be covering today. The user story to cover buyer sign in, buyer sign up, the profile update, delete buyer address, searching address, creating address, getting all orders. So these kind of things, actually this application, the web application, the user story we're going to cover. Okay. So now you see this, the small functionality, not big. Buyer sign in, buyer sign up. So of course, whenever we if you guys remember, as I said, when we develop a small or specific functionality, it has multiple layers. One is, of course, it has the front end, it has the back end. Of course, whenever it has the back end, we have the come on in, Devashish, welcome back. Go sit down there. Thank you. So there is a front end, there is a back end, and there is a database. That's the maximum 3 layer. Front end become the clients. Okay, clients means who is actually the accepting the back end, or who is actually connected with the back end or integrated with the back end. I just put in the front end in the here and the back end in the left side. We specifically excuse me, only the website we call the front end. So start using the right wording from today. Mobile app, we call the mobile app. Desktop app, we call the desktop app. And if other company and consume our API, it will be the B2B. They are also our client. So make sure know the right wording. Okay. So in the backend code base, sign in is a function that handling the buyer login functionality. Okay. So remember we said that in the backend, there will not be any HTML, CSS. So in the technical terms. So now you guys are learning actually the right thing. In the front end, it is developed between the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, that's how you will see in the front end. In the front end, you will see HTML, JavaScript, CSS. In the back end, you will not see anything, just the purely the programming language, which can be JavaScript, can be Python, can be Java, can be Golang, can be PHP, anything, because you're writing the backend logic. Pratik, am I right? Make sure you help me out. Okay. So I have the developer with me, so you guys make sure I'm not saying it wrong. Okay. So now you know this front end is in between your business logic implementation, consumption, and the beautification, which is HTML, CSS. Okay. So of course we will go over the code base too. We're just giving the snippet. So this sign in will not work. This will not work if we do not execute this one. If we do not in the front end, if we do not implement this API, the sign in on the website will not work. That's it. So remember when we say the front end back end, the front end will not work if the back end is not active. So multiple way. If you do not implement the API, your front end will not work. If the back end is down, your front end will not work. Even though you have everything is there, your front end is there, the button is there, your functionality is there, you are typing, but it will not go over because the connection is broken or connection is not implemented, or is connected, but your backend service is down. So remember, there is you'll be hearing the server versus service. There is two different things. A server means it's a computer. A laptop can be a server, means serving something. A virtual machine, that's a server. In a server, there can be a multiple application installed, Node.js, Python, Golang, and those are serving your API. So if the service is down, say an example, it's a Node.js based application. If our service is down, then the front end will not work also. And service down means it will throw the 500 HTTP 500. So here is hearing the HTTP code now. So in the internet, it does not know anything, but only it knows the HTTP code. 200 means your request you are sending is accepted, working just fine. 300 means redirection, means you go to the TS for you are typing your username, password, it redirect to you portal.ts4u.us. 400 means you are typing something either wrong, or you do not have access permission, or you do not have you are sending some wrong data. That's the 400 series. 300 series is redirection. 400 series is your access credential issues. And 500 series is actual server is down or service are down. These are very technical thing. That's how the front and back end actually they communicate logically. Okay. So what happened then? So basically, remember this, when a user story comes, for this user story, there is 8 people involved here now. Technically 8 people. So if we design the UI UX, that's 1 person. If we, of course, this need to have a back-end developer, so 2 person. We need a front-end developer, 3 person. We need the designer, like the architect, because they will tell how it works, 4 person. We need the quality assurance front end. We need the quality assurance back end. We need the database engineer, and we need the DevOps engineer. This is it, because nobody is going to do other people work. And that's exactly work. So it's simple for this user story. And that's the reason we say it's a development team. When you call it, in the Scrum, we call the development team. We do not call anything else because we are working as a team. Okay. And if you see them, so everything is start with the back end. Okay. It does not mean you cannot do the front end. You can. UI UX designer can design it. front-end developer can actually put the HTML, CSS, everything together, because nobody can sit idle in the Scrum. So everybody is working, but when the backend developer finish the coding is done, and they actually start reviewing their code with their significant senior engineer, make sure their code base is good to go. If their part is done, and then do the technical review meeting. In this meeting, we involve means whoever is actually going to test it, whoever is going to consume the API, and that can be the mobile, can be the desktop, can be the website, or can be the outside vendor. So they actually meet just to know how this API works, how the logic works. Okay, so this is, if this API is actually stored in the code, API means the backend code, and basically we do not have any option to see the code, actually how this API works. So for this, we use another app that the backend developer implement. That app is called the Swagger. So that's another web-based application that's to just expose all your business logic, which is the API. For who? For only the development team member. Nobody can see. Only no third-party people can see, no outside people can see. Only the people who has access permission, they can see. So what is the functionality of the Swagger? This is, you can see the what type of API it is, how the payload is. We'll be learning all this. But that's the only way you can know how the business logic for a specific user story works. So any question on this? So look at this one. If you look at this one here, look at the logic here. So this is, of course, JavaScript code. You do not need to be JavaScript developer unless you are a software engineer. Okay. But if you just read simple way, you'll be familiar. 404 is here. Okay. There is error. You see the 200 is here. And you see the 400 is here. At least as a non-coder, non-technical people who does not write the code, they understand these things. Because that's the way the front end knows when something is not working, it will throw the error. So anything you will be seeing in the Swagger, it is actually coming from here. It is not coming from the Swagger. Swagger is like a tools. You just implement to display your API specification and the details on the web-based format. So basically your logic, your backend logic for this sign-in is written here. And that's the part is the technical. And this part is actually connected with the database. A database can be MongoDB, means the NoSQL database. And database can be relational database, which is table and column. Non-relational database is a key value. Simple. There are two major type of database that day-to-day we use. One is key value, which is the non-SQL database, MongoDB. It's called the document DB, we call it, because it's JSON format. And the relational database is a table, row, and column. So for this platform, it is non-relational database. It's a MongoDB. So backend is connected always with the database. And the front end is connected with the backend. Any question, if you guys have, write it down. This is very important part. Front end is combination of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And backend logic, there is no HTML, CSS. It's simple business logic. Remember, we keep talking, backend logic is everything. Look at it, there is no HTML, CSS. Find out, there is nothing. And look at this, you'll be finding the HTML, CSS either here or somewhere else, because that's how it works. Okay, so we are not going to actually go to the code base because we are not doing the code review. We are just showing the code snippet. Now you can see here actually this actually the front end code. But from the user point of view, we only see this. We only see this. We are typing this email ID, the password, and then we click the login. And then in the database, that's all we can see. So this is the four interface for now, the four the things going on. One is the front end, one is the back end. Front end, where is the user is sending the request, that goes to the, that is here. That's the front end developer write the code. And then actually this code actually is here. When you hit the enter, actually it makes the your evaluation, the whether you have access permission or you do not have the access permission. If you have access permission, of course, as a front-end user, you'll be logged in and you're good to go. And then, of course, there is the database layer. So database layer is a part of the database team, exclusively, very strictly maintained. Another very powerful position in the development team, database team. They are one of the another powerful team. They do not allow anyone to touch the database. You can get the read-only access, this about it, because they maintain it. So backend developer always work with backend developer, database, the cloud ops engineer, DevOps engineer, quality assurance engineer. Everybody asks request to the database engineer to give them minimum access permission. Minimum means you cannot destroy the database, you cannot create the table, you cannot remove anything else. You are not, because they are the sole responsible team for every application to manage, update all type of database. So if a company has 1,000 application, you can call 40,000 environment, 40,000 databases there, because every application has a minimum 3 environment or 4 environment. So it means the 40,000 database. So and if you think about these big companies, they have 1,000 of application, thousands, not 100, thousands. And that's the reason database team maintain all of the database. So you see this, so why the database needs? Of course, database is completely the listening what the backend say, but still we do not trust it. While we develop the application, we actually thoroughly test every single thing. Okay, so such an example, if we say in this, I want to just send just the information, the abc dot the shibluahmad@abc.com, shibluahmad@gmail.com. In the email field, it should just take this string. How about if I type 123@gmail.com? Should it accept or not? It shouldn't accept, right? Something. So you just verify everything on the database. If it accepts here, you need to verify how the database behavior. So this kind of things, actually both people does. Both means quality assurance does as well, the cloud ops does as well. Because the basic database query is simple. You just write the query against the database and you can see the value. Because the technically only 15 to 20 database query, they are straightforward, and we expect from the both cloud ops engineer and the quality assurance engineer, they need to run the query so they can verify instead of they reach out to the database engineer. So now look at this. Look at this, the one endpoint. Remember, this is the very important part. So because this is the where everything drives. So that's a specific endpoint for the sign-in. Okay. And the more user story you create, and the new endpoint developer creates based on the user story. So see this user slash sign-in. If I understand correctly, all the user specific APIs can be under the user, and sign-in will be the new user story, such as like the user lockout, user password change, user password verification, and then the OTP change, the OTP expire, and the address change, anything you can see after the user. So that's the way actually the backend developer, they categorize in a way that is kind of the meaningful, easy to understand, easy to see. Okay. And this is actually, as a DevOps engineer, cloud ops engineer, this is where actually you design it. That's, in your database server, in your web server, when you design it, actually you design like this. And you'll be learning more details, how this works. So if you have 15 features in an application, and each of the feature you categorize by specific name, like the product, users, the campaign, and then what is called the payment. all of the feature has a lots of user story. So behind the scene, DevOps engineer, CloudOps engineer, when they deploy the code, they actually make things categorized in a way so that the quality assurance front-end developer, they can actually understand it. So now, if you, as a DevOps engineer, if you understand, well, that's how I have to do, so that I can respond to the quality assurance and the front-end engineer. Why I'm saying about this? Because the backend engineer write the code, their responsibility is not deploying the code. Their responsibility is not taking the code on the cloud or the 10 server and then the QA can use it. That's not their job. Their job is writing the code, review the code, push the code to the GitHub, they're done. Hands off, they do not do anything else. The rest of the work done by the DevOps engineer. So what they do? Again, they go back to they work with backend engineer, they understand how this endpoint works, and what dependency this endpoint is using, what the version this endpoint, what version they have to install. They have to do all of this. How they do this? They set up a meeting, they communicate. This is the reason the DevOps, CloudOps engineer, they sit down in the middle between the developer and the quality assurance because they can help. Why? Because DevOps engineer, they work with the developer hand to hand, basically, because that's the way they know how to deploy this code on the cloud. Once they deploy, they own the whole environment. Environment means anything goes wrong, it's DevOps engineer role. They are the one that they take the request and they look into the issues, that what is going on. Can be database, can be the backend code, can be the version issues, anything and everything. The system is slow, the deployment did not go well, and the dependency has crashed, the system is up and not running. It's all actually the core responsibility of the DevOps, CloudOps engineer job. Once they finish their part, and finally, as a user means the quality assurance, they see this. But the developer job is they write the code, they push the code in the GitHub. Nothing they do. They do not have any other scope. Anything wrong with the database, again, DevOps engineer can work with the database team to identify the issues. So this is very important to know. The DevOps, CloudOps, they actually sit in the middle. They do not write the code, but they deploy everything so that it works properly. In the development environment, look at this. They're serving quality assurance, front-end developer, and then the whole development team. The business is seeing the issues, quality assurance see the issues, system is slow, system is like the memory issues, everything they support development team member. We are talking about the mostly quality assurance. When the code went to the production, now they actually support the business operation and the IT operation. See, that's the reason DevOps, they are in the middle. They actually support to the business. They have to support to the development team as well. So remember, this is very important. We ask this question, hey, we have an operational, the task created, what do you do? How do you work on it? This kind of question we ask, and we want to know. You just do not run away from your responsibility. You just read the ticket and you see who created the ticket, what is the ticket is asking, and then who created this ticket. You set up a meeting with them and you actually take the ticket assigned to you if it is a high priority ticket, and then you start working on it. You try to, if it is not in your scope, you bring the backend software engineer, you bring the database engineer, you bring the quality assurance engineer. The end goal is you have to fix it. You are collaborating, you are not fixing anybody's work as a DevOps engineer. Unless it is, your server is slow, server is out of memory, server is crashing. These are the different things. But if it is the code-based issues, you have to actually collaborate. Collaborate means you are actually bringing everybody on the table and showing the issues and working through the issues. Because you do not need to know everything. And that's actually their job as well. Okay. So now if you go to the second user story, I think that should be the number one. Okay. The second user story is the front-end code. Front-end and back-end, this is the user sign up. Look at this one. the buyer sign up. Okay. So of course the code is here, the backend code is here, and the front end code is here. So of course, remember, but these are coming from the sprint board. Remember, all of this is a story will be on the sprint board. And the sprint board is a story coming from the planning meeting. And the planning meeting, we discuss about what? What user story need to be developed next 2 weeks sprint. You see the link? The root is where? Your Scrum. Nobody can work on anything unless something is on the sprint board. This is the basic practice or principle working in the Scrum environment. If something you work outside of your sprint, it has to go through the product owner or the Scrum master. They need the access, they need to give you the permission. But these are the work start from the sprint board. So look at this one. This is the fully JavaScript base, and we discuss about this. We use the MERN stack. And the MERN stack means MongoDB is the database that where the code that your user data is stored. Database functionality is to store the user data, not the business logic. One more time, okay? User data is the main responsibility of the database. Backend, the functionality is to write the code to evaluate user action is genuine or not, user action is eligible or not. That's the backend does. Front-end responsibility is allowing the user to send the data, means to do something, action on the front end or the mobile app. So they have all specifically does different thing. So on this one, we are just seeing the, in the sign up field, we actually sending the 3 type of data, okay? So before we go this, Pratik, how can I, what is the staging, right? What is the URL for Swagger? Can someone give me the URL, please?
Okay, 1 minute, please.
Yes. Okay. Staging. But am I right?
No, dash be equal.
I
Is it
sent on,
Yep.
I sent on the chat.
Thank you very much. I need to show you guys, otherwise you guys will be lost here. We're here now. Okay, so let's go back here. And that's what I said, the Swagger is implemented by the backend developer, not the CloudOps engineer, not the front-end developer. So make sure know who does what. Let's go back here again. Okay. So look at this. This is the sign up is sending 3 pieces of information for the user to sign up. Email, name, email, and password. Of course, you are non-technical people. You do not understand all of this, right? Just to read to understand, but you do not still understand. But this is the actually backend code. This is the front-end implementation. And but actually look at this one. Look at this one. That's actually the Swagger. This is where the development team understand what is this is looking for. Look at this user and sign up. And look at the 3 pieces of information. This is called the request payload. Request payload means this is the one the user is sending from the front end or the mobile app or the desktop app. That's how we say it. And then this is the application./JSON. This is the document type, or the dot is the extension. When the 2 applications communicate, they have also the extension they follow, either XML or the YAML or the JSON. For the RESTful API, this is the RESTful API, mostly on 95%, it's follow the /JSON. It is nothing but just the extension of the file. That's it. It's you need to know just extension of the file, such as .txt, .jpeg, .png. So this is another extension that 2 devices or the more than 2 devices, they are sending and receiving the data, and this is application.json. So you look at this is the JSON format. Okay, JSON is sending key and the value. The key is actually you are not changing. Actually, key is here. Key part is backend engineer write the code. You cannot change at all. Okay, and this is the based on the key. It is also on the database as well. So let's continue here. Yep. So this is the, let's go back here. This is the key, email, name, password. You see this? This is the three you see. Let's go back. Look at this, email, name, and password. This you cannot change in the JSON format. Okay, because these the three things also on the database too. What you can do, you actually can do you can change this. That's actually the user data. User sign up. And the Swagger is not a testing tool. Swagger is actually API specification tools that you can see the details of each of the API. Understand? Swagger does, you can try it out, you can test it. Okay, I'm not saying you cannot test it, you can test everything. It does not save anything because Swagger is actually the backend. Swagger is written on the backend. Okay, it is not a testing tool. You cannot save any of your tests. You can try it out to identify the test is working or not, specific API is working or not, and you can take it to your testing tools, which is Postman, Rest Assured, and so many hundreds of testing tools out there that the DevOps engineer, CloudOps engineer use, quality assurance use, software engineer use. They use this type of testing tool for the test the API. Now let's look at this one. Look at this 24404. Look at this one very carefully. And look at this one as well. So you will see 404, 400. What is the 200? Do I see? I think 200 is missing somewhere. What is the 200? Let's go back. I think here we can see properly. So look at this one. So 400, 200, 400, 404. You see this? And you see the email and password. That's the backend code. So now let's go back on this here. Here is the API. And look at this, 200, 400, 404. So it's coming from the backend business logic. So that's exactly the Swagger actually expose what is written on the backend. So if something is not working, who you'll report? You will actually talk to the backend developer that things is not working as expected. This is something has to be meaningful based on the user story. It is not like anything you can do however you want. This is actually the industry standard best practice code. But this HTTP code is the code has to be the different or the same, but the description is changed based on the user story. Okay, so if someone asks you 400 means what is producing for your user story, not for your HTTP generic rules. So if I show you what I mean here, if you type HTTP code here, just to understand, so you know what we are talking here. This is actually the industry best practice, the HTTP code. They do not represent any application. Means that you are writing your application, you will be actually providing your own meaningful description, and you will be using your specific code. You will be giving the specific description. That's what I meant. And the backend code has to be based on what the specification say. When we say the backend specification is written by the solution architect. How this API should work, what will be the logic, and how this logic should work, when it should trigger. All of the company, all of the big company you go, is written by the solution architect. Any big company you go, they actually, even the Swagger is also created by the solution architect. So then what is the easiness here? Easy, backend developer take the code, start writing the code, and they can actually implement the description and the code to follow the solution architecture documentation. Okay. So go back here. So what we see on this here, and that's the things we see actually on here, email and password. Good, email and password. That's the back end. This is the front end. Now go back here. We have seen it, and we discussed the sign up, and this is the sign up. So you see that there is 3 fields here in the sign up, 1, 2, 3. And if you go back on the Swagger, there is 3 fields. So now the question is, if there is an API, there is like the 10 field, like the 10, like the key and value. Do we have to implement all of this on the front end? I don't know the answer. Pratik, is it important to implement all the whole API or the specific? If we do not want to expose some of the field on the front end, is okay not to expose. Is it true or false?
Actually, it depends on the data model, which field is required or not.
Okay. So what that means is if we have the API payload is like a 10, right? There is 2 things happen here. One is if business say, I do not want to expose all the data for the mobile app, or I do not want to expose all the data for the web app, that's fine. That's the business decision. And in the data model, like in the backend and the database, this is like they are just as expected, because the API is there. You expose or not, that's up to you. But typically, if you have the API, the whole payload, you are supposed to implement the payload on the front end so that the user is sending the data, you can see the data on the back end. That's how actually it works. We will give you the 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, we'll give you the question and answer session so you guys can ask the question. Let's go back here. Okay, so now let's go to the buyer profile. Again, so you guys can see another one, which is user and update. Buyer profile means updating all of this. So because CloudOps, you guys will be deploying your application this coming Sunday. There is only 2 API, summation and reverser. But actually, this is just to show how you actually deploy the code. But in application, there can be 100, several hundred, 500, can be 1,000 API. Can be the 5 features to the 10 features, can be 20 features, based on how complex the project, how large the application. But that's really nothing to you. As long as you understand the one part, you understand the best practices, you are good to go. You can actually continue the same journey. So your API endpoint actually telling you where you are going, what is this is doing. This API is doing on the front end, the buyer, they're actually updating their profile. Even though for the CloudOps engineer, they do not care much functionality. They care how to implement it, how to actually deploy it in a way that the quality assurance people can test it properly and the business can use the way it has been developed. Again, initially, if you are a CloudOps engineer for a project, your initial goal is deploy the application and it should work. But if you want to be one of the best DevOps CloudOps engineer, you bring your fit to the, again, application as well. Why? Because you do not want to go back over and over to the developer or the QA. What is API does? What that API does? What that API does? You can ask. It will not have a pleasant experience for you in that project because you're depending on other people. So the best practice is, as a DevOps CloudOps engineer, when you deploy the code, after you finish deploying, if you know your situation you are working on this application, means supporting this application next 6 months or 10 months, please learn the application as soon as possible so that business will rely on you and you will be productive on this project or on this team. And business makes you the hero. Your technology do not make you the hero. Why? Because business rely on the users. If users see the application is working fine, they're good. If the users see application is not working, business create the ticket, and that ticket come to you as a DevOps engineer. If you do not know the application, you'll be running everywhere just to find out someone, because someone need to babysit you so that you can fix the issues. So now you will say, well, I don't know the application. You keep saying it as a DevOps engineer. You keep saying, I don't know how this application works. I just deploy it. It's okay, but your performance review will be sucks. So I don't want to hear what you say every day. I want these things need to be fixed, right? That's all I care. So the best tips is any environment you go, any application you work, right after the develop or test or deploy, your best bet is know the application in and out, everything possible, so that people can rely on you. People end of the year, people can select you as the best employee of the year. In this application, in the TS40 application, at this moment, the highest people is who know my application. It's not my software engineer is not my highest people at this moment, because those people can support our student if a student join. Am I right? That's the reason. So know the application. This is very core part of the long-term sustainability in any company you work for. All right. So now let's go to the profile update. Profile update is, look at this. Again, the front-end code. Front-end code works as expected, but it does not execute until you do the API execution. So look at this. There is the data you are updating, and there are multiple issues on the front end on the update. We know this. Currently, you can put any mobile data. It can be string. Mobile number cannot be string. It cannot be text. So basically now it is the vanilla. Anything you can type, you can actually type on the mobile screen. The update your mobile number, but we need to fix it. So you guys will know, like, the data type is important in actually the software development. Data type means if I want to update somebody's date of birth, it has to be date of birth. It should not be text. If I want to put somebody's salary, it should be number. It should not be text. That's what we call the data type. On this update, it sucks that we can put anybody's name in the mobile number. But anyway, that's the bug they found out. That's not our goal here. So you see this? This is the front end, what the user is doing on this, and the backend logic is here. That's it. And this is your user interface. This is the user interface. This is your database. So the question is now, can we test, as a CloudOps engineer, can you verify the backend without implementing the front end? Yes, you can. Because that's the way you will be using the Postman. You need the API endpoint. You deployed your code on the AWS cloud, right? Because you do not have the luxury that front-end developer write the code and you can see it. That's not your goal. The first goal is the first and the primary goal is backend code need to work. So for the backend testing, for this testing, we use hundreds of tools out there. One of the tools is Postman. It's a free. It's also the paid version. You download it, you install it, and you start using it for your testing. So now the question is, after the CloudOps engineer deploy the code, you actually give the URL to the QA. You can, it's okay. But if they find out the issue every day after you deploy the code, you will be in trouble. You need to learn how to verify your own deployment before you give me. Okay? There will be a retro. The discussion will be, please, next time, verify your code before you give me the endpoint. Okay? So that's the reason. In the interview, all I ask the CloudOps engineer, do you know how to do the API testing? Because it goes to you. It's not like you have to test everything. You just go the very high level. Okay, this endpoint, is it working or not? This endpoint, is it working or not? That's your scope of the testing. What happens if you do not do this? You will be reliable other people, and the quality assurance will create a lot of noise. And in some point, they will raise the concern, hey, this DevOps engineer, he does the deployment, he doesn't have any clue how this API works. Most of the time, after his deployment, nothing works. And you do not want to be this kind of situation at all. How to solve it? When you work with the developer, know this, developer knows everything. He knows how to test it. He knows how to create the bug, and he will actually help you how to do the API testing as well. So we all go back to the backend developer because he knows who wrote the code. He wrote the code. Who explained how this data point works? He knows how to explain. Who knows how to actually the 404 is right? He knows how to do it because backend developer does all of this. So that's the reason when, as a DevOps engineer, when you work with the developer, make sure just do not only ask how to deploy, how to know the endpoint. Just ask how this works and go over the Swagger endpoints, mean the specification. Then you can learn how this works. This is very important because during the development, you as a DevOps, CloudOps engineer, you work with the developer hand to hand, but actually you are supporting two people, the quality assurance, front-end developer, mobile app developer, and actually the whole team during the development. But you learn from who? You learn from the backend developer. And for the database specification, who you work with? You work with the database engineer because he will tell you how the database works. You do not need to have the artificial knowledge to know all of this, or the whole knowledge. Database engineer will tell you how this table works, what is the column, what is the row, and what you have to do, they will tell you. So again, it's a fully teamwork. It's not the one-man show. And then, of course, as I said, if you only deploy the backend code, you can start testing your API testing using the Postman. When your API testing is correct, like but for the quality point of views, or the CloudOps said, hey, this API is not working. Why I will be showing this, right? And then we are not, if the backend API is not working, we do not start consuming those API in the front end or mobile app. We do not do this. In a good environment, we do not do the repetitive steps. What is the reason? Well, if backend is not working fine, if front-end developer implement everything else, and the quality assurance tested 10 hours, you wasted the time, right? So that's the reason you always go back to the backend. Let me test the backend, how this API works. Positive testing, negative testing, sending the different type of data. Working fine, now the front-end developer can consume this API and he can actually write this code. And then finally, you as a user, you can see the front-end code. Now you should be good to go. And then finally, of course, the quality assurance, they just verify on the backend database if things are working as expected or not. So there are, if you want to, after deploy the code, we'll be talking about the deployment. Don't worry about it. After deploy the code, you can test only the backend to the database. That's the 2-layer. You can test from the front end, it goes to the backend and it goes to the database. That's the all layers, means all the layers. Or you can do from the front end and you can verify the same thing on the backend as well. So this actually, you as a quality assurance, as a front-end developer, as a CloudOps engineer, you need to know all of this. It's not complex. It's kind of the repetitive work, but that's the reason you are in the development team. Good? Let's see what time it is. Yep, this is I am actually stopping this.